Hey folks, today we're going through Dev Diary 178, A Vision in Gold. This is our first Dev Diary for the Coronations Event Pack that is coming for Crusader Kings 3. And this is going to be our initial overview of that DLC. It isn't everything that's coming or how everything works. That is going to be covered in later Dev Diaries. But this is really how this system will work in practice, some information on it, how it will play out. I will say, even more so than previous event packs, this isn't really an event pack in many ways. It's really more of an activity pack, as we will see as we go through this Dev Diary. And the first thing they're going to cover is the Coronation activity, something that we've all wanted for a long time, and it is finally in the game. And you can see that on the screen now. You can see this bishop is going to crown the king, and that is going to be a good time. This is of Poland, the crown of the Kingdom of Poland, and you are going to get that, and then you're going to play through this. Very similar to like university visits or grand weddings. As you can see, you've got that Magnificence bar across the bottom. They're going to talk about that later in the Dev Diary, how that works and what benefits you can get out of it. But as you can see, kind of plays out like other activities we already have. Next, they're going to talk about the vision of this event pack. So with this event pack, they tried something a little bit different from Wandering Nobles, Wards and Wardens, and Friends and Foes. These were previous event packs scattered with little tasty flavor treats throughout the game. Coronations is instead one discrete bundle of highly visible and mechanically important content. You will not have to search it out when you're playing the game. This DLC presents itself to you in fanfare and anticipation the moment you die, or the moment you graduate to kingship. I guess I would disagree a little bit with Wandering Nobles being in that list, because you did have those activities, you got the new tree. I think you did like actively interact with that. I will say the Wards and Wardens, Friends and Foes, that did mainly just add events that you kind of found during the game. Not really something that you searched out for. It does look like, as they say though, this is the first one where it is very impactful, something you will do every time, depending on what tier of ruler you are. They are going to talk about that later on. So this DLC is going to be squarely focused on the beginning of a new reign, your initial years as a sovereign. They're often dramatic years with new factions, claimants, friends, counselors and rivals, new goals to set and new boundaries to gaze upon. Your ruler's coronation won't take place in isolation from these fresh horrors and newfound delights. No, the intent here is for this activity to help towards those things. I think this is going to work in very nicely with legitimacy. We'll see that talked about later on, really smoothing over those initial years when you take over. Is it going to go too far with that? We'll see when the DLC releases. I actually quite liked it where you took over as a new ruler and like chaos would happen. I guess that can still happen even with this, even with legitimacy. But I feel like some of that has been kind of, I don't know, like sandpapered away a little bit, and it isn't as troublesome getting a new ruler as it used to be. Some of you probably think that's a good thing. I think it maybe has gone a little bit too far. And what they're saying is this new activity is going to highlight your new foes and help you identify the sources of your new character's strength. By holding a coronation, you might hope to, without the strains of war, address the teething problems that a new ruler has. Again, wasn't that the point of legitimacy? But I guess this is another way to do it as well. So this will help you with factions, claimants, etc. This isn't guaranteed, however. Your coronation could be a venue for your humiliation or even your deposition. So I guess if it goes very badly, you could actually lose your throne. That would actually be pretty cool if you went somewhere and it went so badly, I don't know, like your bishop or whoever is crowning you goes, no, do you know what? You shouldn't be king. Or somebody kind of ambushes you there and takes over. I guess that could be pretty cool depending on how that plays out. Don't fear though, guys. Such a debacle would require significant political miscalculation on your part. You know, they're saying here, look, as players, you're so smart, nothing bad would ever happen. You're just going to save scum anyway if it does go badly. But you can have this happen if you aren't significantly good. You can see another screenshot here, the coronation, supplication of the nobles. And you can see on the right-hand side, they're going to cover this later on, major supporters, major detractors, and you're going to get these events similar to all other activities, kind of going along, seeing what happens. And this is all around traitors and what might happen if that plays out as well. Conversely, if your succession is smooth, then coronations become a fine exercise in patting yourself on the back. A beloved, highly capable ruler has every right to pull through with fresh modifiers, currencies, and incentives in hand. They do say here in future Dev Diaries they're going to cover the coronation activity and oaths that you can take. They do actually cover that a little bit later on, but in depth they're going to talk about it in future Dev Diaries. So the actual coronation activity itself, how does it play out and what happens? Well, coronations are a new activity type available to kings and emperors. It isn't dukes or anything lower, basically the same as getting your throne room. They're accompanied by a new realm law which states whether you are crowned or uncrowned. While uncrowned, you suffer opinion and legitimacy modifiers. The only way to become crowned is to host a coronation. Both the activity and the new laws are DLC only, and will not affect players who do not have the event pack. So everything we see here is only DLC. Very similar to the previous event pack. I don't think there was anything actually in that one that was available for non-DLC owners. I guess we will get a patch with this, but nothing in there will link to this exact coronation system. That is unfortunate. I wish there was like a base version that was just very simple. Maybe you didn't even have the coronation event. Maybe you just traveled somewhere and then you just got an event. You know, like when you go pay homage to your liege. Something like that, where you just travel to see the Pope or something, and then he crowns you, and you just travel back, and like nothing else happens. Even if like this uncrown system isn't there, just so you actually have it in some form in the base game. But no, everything here is DLC by the sounds of it anyway. You can see that new UI here, Succession, Kingdom of Poland. You can see the limited crown authority, and then below this, if you have the DLC, you'll see uncrowned, vassal opinion -10, legitimacy game -25%, legitimacy -2.5 a month as well. So yes, you will want to get crowned as soon as you can. I wonder how this is going to interact if like you become a ruler and you're like out on crusade or something like that, and you can't actually get back to do this. It does say it's timed, like you can only do this for a certain amount of time after you take over your realm. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, if there's some kind of modifier, if you're in something that you can't get out of when this happens. You know, maybe you take over as a king and previously your heir was out at a grand wedding or something like that, and he isn't going to get back for a long time. I'm sure they've thought about it, but that is one thing to keep an eye on in the future. And then for the coronation, you can only host this when first becoming a king or emperor. Thus, a coronation host must either be a new heir succeeding to the throne or a ruler that just increased their title tier. So if you go up from king to emperor, duke to king, you'll be able to have one of these coronations. The majority of CK3 sovereigns will only ever hold one coronation, but this DLC strongly incentivizes everyone of king tier and above to host a coronation. So if you have this DLC, you're always going to be doing it. You're very likely to only do it once on a character, but again, if you found an empire later on, you can host another one to show how cool you are. The coronation activity brings together courtiers, vassals, and neighboring rulers to witness the creation of a new sovereign, to socialize, and to politic frenetically in the shadows. Equipped with an array of intents for hosts and attending characters, and with a wide range of events. We'll see if that's the case. That is one of the problems with some of these activities. You just see the same events over and over and over again. So hopefully there is a large bunch of events here. This will make it not annoying to always have to do, because they have said here, you're always going to be doing this if you have the DLC. So hopefully there are a lot of events, and it isn't just the same, you know, 8 to 10 that you always see every time that you do it. Coronations are also a reliable source of legitimacy, opinion, and prestige for the host, but can be employed towards other ends as well. You can do other things like kill people, I imagine. So kind of like when you take over as a ruler, I like doing like funerals for the previous ruler, because you receive a lot of prestige, piety, and legitimacy through that. It looks like this is another way to do it, and that is going to help you as you take over. You can see here another coronation event, friends everywhere, and you can see there's a couple of different options. I will cherish this gift and our enduring friendship, and you can get friendships out of this. All those kind of things, different ways you can play this out. I'm sure if you're an intrigue character, maybe there's a vassal you want to bump off or something, and then you won't need to worry about them later in your reign as well. Mechanically, the coronation activity focuses on replayability. As we just said, we'll see how replayable it is. On reacting to your current situation, and on agency on both sides of the attendees and the host, because I guess if you aren't the ruler, if you're just a vassal, you're also going to be coming to these, and you can see what you can get up to as well. Through time and across space, coronation ceremonies tended to hit many of the same beats, to use many of the same ideas and phrases, but the context of their words is ever changing, and they've decided to implement that in this as well. These moments were never merely ceremonial, they were also political. And another screenshot here, again showing the supporters, the detractors, and this is all around learning a language and things like that. Maybe somebody's come as a vassal and said, hey, you don't speak my language, I'll teach you it, and then we can kind of interact better and things like that. So again, some cool little interactions we're going to get. The main principle for Coronation Flavor was to create the content that feels truly regal, truly historic, worthy of Charlemagne, Chinggis, and the mighty Baldwin the Great, and the righteous Latin Empire. They've put that in there to annoy you Byzantine players. They're talking about the Latin Empire, knowing you're going to get angry, and leave a comment in there. Indeed, because coronations can only be held by kings and emperors, if somebody's disrespecting a host at their own coronation, that somebody is going to have a damn good reason, and is very likely to pay dearly for their poor choices and their poor manners. So you can go up and cause trouble, it sounds like, in these events, and then you'll see how that plays out afterwards. The main regional flavor focus of this DLC are Christian and Western Europeans, wherein are found the most widely recognized symbols of medieval coronation, and furthermore, the rites of coronation across Christianity, though varied in order and form, were actually quite unified in what happens in them. They do say here that isn't to say there aren't any triggered events of flavor for other faiths and government types, they're just not as fleshed out as the Western Europeans and Christians. I imagine some people won't be happy about this. I think they've probably done this because a lot of Chapter 4 is focused in the steppe. Obviously, later on, we're going out to China, Japan, Southeast Asia. So I think this has been kind of added in. So those of us who play in Europe and things like that are getting a DLC that is more focused on us, and then everything else is focused on that eastern side of the map for the most part. But as they do say here, this is also available for everywhere else. It's just mostly going to be focused towards those Christian and Western European rulers. So we'll see again, this might get improved in the future. Maybe when All Under Heaven comes out and future DLC comes out, they'll add some events into here, just like they did with court events. They're always adding new court events, aren't they? So anyway, let's move on to Magnificence. As mentioned, Coronations can either be a cakewalk or a rough ride, based on the competence of your ruler, the wealth at your disposal, and the opinion of your attendees. Magnificence, the measure of a coronation success, is the main metric used to see how troubled or unflattering your coronation has become, or how majestic and glorious it was. It's drawn from the coronation setup, from the actions of the host, and the maneuverings of the most significant friendly and hostile attendees. Again, if you've done like a university visit or a pilgrimage, it's very similar to that system. You're trying to fill up this bar along the bottom, and the further you fill it up, the better the rewards are going to be. And you can see that on the screen now. Your coronation, this guy got it to what, like tier 3, tier 4, depending on how you read those little notches. This became a grand coronation. Legitimacy and prestige activity rewarded is 75% better. The same for the oath reward, which they're going to talk about later on. And then intent, vassal, guest opinion gain, plus 15. So those people are going to like you that little bit more as well. So again, if you've played through the other big activities, you know how this is roughly going to work anyway. The next thing they're going to talk about is host and guest interplay. Not that kind, guys. Although maybe that can happen. A king is made by the assent of the church or his nobles, or maybe even the common people if you really want to think of it. Coronations aim to highlight all of these relationships and give both the host and the guest means to explore them. To aid in this, and we've already seen this already, they've added this widget to the coronation activity interface which will track the most powerful supporters and the people who don't like you as much. And you can see again that on the right hand side as we look at this screenshot, you can see they've got a sultan as a supporter and then some other people as the detractors. These groupings don't mean anything beyond the activity but have a significant impact in the outcomes. It's unfortunate it doesn't carry on afterwards, as we already have like the traits around being loyal or disloyal. It would be cool if that was an outcome of this, unless maybe that does happen and that'll get covered in a future dev diary. But I hope like the major supporters like automatically became loyal and maybe the major detractors became disloyal to you as an outcome of what happened at the coronation. I think that would work quite well, but they don't mention if that is something that would happen. But anyway, you can see that on the screen at the moment, and I guess you'll track them as they move up and down that system, depending on what happens during the activity. Attendees may use their intents to support a new sovereign, to undermine the coronation, or most often, to push forward their own interests. The host, meanwhile, will use intents mainly to focus on one group of attendees over another and manage the members of that group. We saw one of the options earlier, impress attendees. I guess that gives you opinion modifiers to everyone that arrives. But as they say, attending it not as the ruler, you are going to be able to do things as well. Try push an agenda, try undermine it, as they said. Maybe you can cause it to not happen. Maybe you can kill off somebody that's there, something along those lines. It is going to be pretty fun to interact with this by the sounds of it. The next thing they're going to talk about, similar to hunts and pilgrimages, there are different versions of this you can do. And the next one is Imperial anointment. The coronation activity can be held as a regular old coronation or a more special type anointment. Only available to emperor tier rulers of the appropriate faith, anointment is a grander ceremony that features your head of faith as the crowning officiant. It must be held in a holy site, and some additional requirements are needed which weeds out sinners and illegitimate sovereigns. Anointments offer special bonuses, particularly around legitimacy and opinion of others who do attend as well. You can see that on the screen now. Anointment, prove your legitimacy beyond doubt, gain piety, fervor, and favor of zealot vassals, swear an oath and pledge the course of your reign. They're going to talk about that later on, as I keep saying. Gain opinion with vassals, gain opinion with other rulers. Vassals may leave other factions, and this must be held in a holy site of your faith. So I guess you set this up. It does say the head of your faith, so I guess like if you're in England, you could set this up in Canterbury, and I guess the Pope travels to visit you, and then they do this, so you're not always traveling to Rome. I presumed it would be that. You know, for example, with the Catholics, you would travel to Rome that is the only place you could get the Pope to crown you. But with it saying held at a holy site, I guess you can do that. You know, host it in Canterbury, the Pope travels to you, maybe you kill him off, you know, maybe you don't, and then you will play through it and you get these extra like piety focus bonuses as well. It does say increases the fervor as well. That's kind of a cool way for it to work. I guess they look at it like a new Christian emperor is here. It's not the emperor of the HRE, so I guess why is the Pope doing it? But I guess he's made an exception for you and allows you to be an emperor elsewhere. But pretty cool to see this. It isn't just a normal coronation, I guess, with your bishop or somebody doing it. You can have these really special ones for emperors, and the Pope's going to come along and say God definitely is wanting you to be a ruler. And then the last thing they're going to talk about is that new oath system they've kind of hinted towards during all of this dev diary. And they do say, although the body of this DLC is firmly rooted in the early reign, actually getting that coronation, there are things that stretch further into your reign as that ruler. So during coronations, you'll be called to select an oath, a timed decision that is in essence an objective for your rule. Sometimes the transition from one playable character to another can dull a player's sense of purpose and stagger the momentum of the game. Committing your ruler to a new oath sets forwards a new path and may serve to get things kind of rolling again for your realm, give you something to work towards. I wonder what these are going to be. Put your ideas in the comments down below. I wonder if it could be like win a holy war, you know, expand my realm, maybe improve the development so much. I guess there's going to be ones linked to all the different lifestyles. So it could be like, you know, expand my realm. As I said, maybe build it up a little bit. Maybe you could have like make some good marriages, you know, all these different ideas. Maybe I want to go on pilgrimage and those kind of things like that. I can't imagine it's going to be anything too crazy, but I think they're going to be these like little things you say you're going to do. And then if you complete them in time, as they say here, I guess you get a bonus. If you don't do it, maybe you lose legitimacy. Maybe you lose prestige, or maybe you lose like piety. If you say you're going to go somewhere for a pilgrimage or a crusade and then you don't do that, maybe you lose piety, something along those lines, maybe renown even, depending on what option you have chosen. Again, let me know what you think in the comments down below, what kind of events you want this to be, what kind of decisions you want to be doing for these oaths. I think there could be some pretty cool ones in there. And they do say, again, they're going to talk about these in a future dev diary. But with that, guys, that's the end of the first look at Coronations. There's no release date here or even a hint towards when we might get this DLC. They do say further down the road. They don't say when. We are going to get more in-depth information on how this plays out, how the oaths work, and all these other systems as well. So let me know what you think again in the comments down below. Hit that like button if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I cover Crusader Kings 3, all the news, dev diaries, and I also do live streams every Tuesday and Thursday where we do achievements, campaigns, all those things. So do subscribe if you enjoy it. And I also cover EU5 in a very similar manner. So if you enjoy my videos for this game, if you're looking forward to EU5, I do cover that on the channel as well. So do subscribe. But we'll leave it there for today, and I'll see you all next time.